I stood at the back of that boardroom, watching Jade Coleman take credit for 12 years of my life's work. The name's Brady Mitchell, 49 years old, and I'd just realized I was about to become the most expensive mistake of her career. There were 18 people in that room, investors from Heartland Manufacturing, senior partners from our firm, Morrison Strategic, and her, Jade Coleman, the SVP who'd waltzed in 8 months ago with her Wharton MBA and Goldman Sachs pedigree, talking about how brilliant her analysis was of the Midwest industrial acquisition. Every number she was quoting, every insight she was sharing, every strategic recommendation, all mine. 12 years of grinding through logistics data, building relationships with plant managers, understanding how manufacturing operations actually work. Not the theoretical stuff they teach in business school, but real operations knowledge that takes decades to develop. The key insight, she said, clicking to the next slide, is recognizing that their Ohio facility has been masking pension obligations by transferring workers between subsidiaries. Once you understand this pattern, the entire liability structure becomes clear. I'd found that pattern at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, cross-referencing union contracts with payroll transfers that most analysts would never think to check. But you know what you learn in the Army? You learn that logistics is everything. You learn to dig into details that other people ignore. You learn that the truth is usually buried in paperwork that looks boring to everyone else. See, I'd done 6 years in Army logistics before this corporate life. Started as a private, worked my way up to staff sergeant, spent my last 2 years in Afghanistan managing supply chains that kept our guys fed and armed. When bullets are flying, you learn real fast that the devil's in the details. One miscalculated fuel delivery, one overlooked maintenance schedule, and people die. That attention to detail, that obsession with getting the numbers right, that's what I brought to Morrison Strategic when I mustered out. My wife Linda was pregnant with our second kid, and we needed steady income. The GI Bill helped me get an MBA from State University, working nights and weekends while changing diapers and learning corporate America. An investor raised her hand. This level of operational insight is impressive. How long did this analysis take? Jade flashed that $1 million smile that got her hired. About 4 months of intensive research. I wanted to be absolutely thorough before recommending a $1.8 billion investment. Your research. Right. My jaw tightened, but I kept my expression neutral. Old Army habit. 4 months of my life. 4 months of 12-hour days and weekend work while Linda handled soccer practice and parent-teacher conferences solo. 4 months of building relationships with plant managers who'd actually tell you the truth about capacity issues if you bought them a beer and talked shop instead of throwing around MBA buzzwords. Another investor leaned forward. And you're confident about these liability projections? Absolutely, Jade said. I stake my professional reputation on these numbers. Your professional reputation built on my work, I thought. My reputation earned through 18 years of real operational experience while you were playing an investment banking sandbox. Then came the question that made my blood pressure spike. Who else worked on this analysis? This seems like it would require a significant team. Here it comes, I thought. Here's where she acknowledges the 12 years I've spent learning this business from the ground up. Here's where she mentions the guy who actually knows the difference between theoretical supply chain management and reality. Jade gestured vaguely in my direction. Oh, Brady handles our operations support. You know, pulling files, coordinating data requests, really helpful with the administrative side. Operations support. Administrative side. Like I was some intern fresh out of college instead of a guy who'd spent 6 years keeping soldiers alive through supply chain expertise, followed by 12 years building manufacturing knowledge that most MBAs couldn't touch if their lives depended on it. Brady keeps our operational coordination running smoothly, she added, like she was being generous by mentioning me at all. But the strategic analysis, that's where real graduate-level training becomes essential. Graduate-level training. I had an MBA too, earned it working nights and weekends while raising 2 kids and learning corporate politics. But apparently getting it from State University instead of an Ivy League school meant it didn't count. Apparently my 6 years of military logistics experience was just operational coordination. The room didn't react to her dismissal. Why would they? To them, I was just furniture. Useful furniture maybe, but nothing worth noticing. Just another middle-aged guy in a cheap suit who probably drove a 10-year-old Honda and worried about making mortgage payments. They weren't wrong about the Honda or the mortgage. Linda and I had stretched to buy our house 8 years ago when the kids were younger. Now we had college tuition staring us down for our oldest, plus my parents getting older and needing help with medical bills. This job, this promotion opportunity I'd been hoping for, it mattered. We weren't rich people with trust funds and safety nets. Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger. Anger gets you in trouble. This was calculation. The same kind of tactical thinking that kept me alive in Afghanistan and got me promoted to staff sergeant before I mustered out. I'd been at Morrison Strategic for 12 years. Started right after my Army discharge when Linda was pregnant with our second kid and we needed steady income. Lance Morgan, the managing partner who ran acquisitions back then, saw something in me. Maybe because I asked the right questions, maybe because I actually understood how supply chains worked in the real world. "You've got instincts for this," Lance had told me once during a late-night session preparing for a major negotiation. Most analysts see spreadsheets. You see how things actually operate. He'd started including me in more strategy discussions, not as the lead, but as the guy who could spot when someone was lying about their operational capacity. The guy who knew which questions to ask plant managers to get honest answers instead of corporate speak. Lance understood that real manufacturing knowledge doesn't come from textbooks. It comes from walking factory floors, talking to shift supervisors, understanding why a plant in Ohio might show different efficiency numbers than the same operation in Mexico. He'd started sending me on site visits, letting me build relationships with the people who actually ran these companies we were analyzing. Most of these Ivy League hotshots come in with theories, Lance told me one evening as we prepped for a complex automotive supplier deal. They talk about synergies and optimization like manufacturing is some kind of math problem. You get that it's about people and processes and reality. That's how I learned the business, not through case studies, but through real relationships. I knew which plant managers would give you straight answers and which ones fed you corporate line. I could spot when production numbers didn't match equipment capacity. I understood how union contracts really worked, not just what the HR department put in their presentations. Lance got promoted to senior partner 2 years ago. I was happy for him. He deserved it. The firm was growing, taking on bigger deals, and they needed someone with his experience running the show, but that also meant changes were coming. "We're bringing in some fresh talent," Lance told me when they announced the new hires. "Market's getting more competitive. Board wants people with strong credentials." That's when Morrison Strategic brought in Jade Coleman with her impressive track record of strategic insights from her previous firm. Goldman Sachs background, Wharton MBA, all the right connections. The kind of resume that impressed clients before she even opened her mouth. The first few months were normal enough. I managed operational analysis, coordinated with plant visits, prepared briefings for her meetings, standard work that I'd been doing for years. Jade seemed pleasant enough, asked reasonable questions, treated me professionally. Then she started digging deeper. What did I think about capacity utilization numbers? Did timeline projections seem realistic? How did I verify production data? I answered honestly, explained my methods, pointed out potential issues. It felt good having someone value my input after years of being background support. "You really know this stuff," she'd say, after I'd explained some nuance about environmental compliance costs or union work rules. "I can see why Morrison Strategic has such a strong reputation in manufacturing deals." By month 3, the questions got bigger. Walk me through how Lance used to approach these operational assessments. What was his methodology? I explained the relationship building with plant managers, the importance of verifying data through multiple sources, how you had to understand local politics and union dynamics to predict real integration costs. "Smart approach," Jade said. "This kind of ground-level intelligence is what separates good firms from great ones." I started feeling like maybe I'd found the right working relationship. Someone who appreciated operational expertise, who understood that real due diligence meant more than just financial modeling. Someone who might actually give me credit for the work I was doing. Month 4, she handed me the Heartland Midwest analysis. "This is a big one, Brady. $1.8 billion merger between 2 major players. I need comprehensive operational background. Their facilities, their workforce, their real capacity numbers, everything that might impact integration costs. Could I handle it?" I'd been handling exactly this kind of work for over a decade, just never with my name attached to it. "I want you to take the lead on operational due diligence," she continued. "This deal could make both our careers." If we get this right, it puts Morrison Strategic in the running for some major opportunities. Both our careers. That phrase stuck with me. Maybe this was finally my chance to get proper recognition for the work I'd been doing in the shadows. I dove deep, spent nights rebuilding their operational models because the ones they'd provided didn't match their actual production numbers. Found connections between facilities that explained some unusual cost transfers. Discovered patterns in their workforce data that revealed hidden pension obligations. The work was complex, demanding. Heartland Manufacturing had 12 major facilities across 6 states. Midwest Industrial had 8 plants plus 3 distribution centers. Each location had different union contracts, different environmental compliance requirements, different local tax situations. You couldn't just add their numbers together and call it a day. I found issues their own analysts had missed. The Ohio facility was shifting pension obligations between subsidiaries to make their benefit costs look lower. The Indiana plant had environmental cleanup requirements that weren't reflected in their capital expenditure projections. The Michigan operations had union contract modifications coming up that would add significant labor costs. Combined, these hidden liabilities totaled nearly $700 million, enough to completely change the economics of the deal. But I also found opportunities, ways to restructure their distribution network that could save $200 million annually. Synergies in their manufacturing processes that could reduce costs by 15% within 18 months. Real operational improvements that would create genuine value instead of just cutting jobs. I wrote it all up thoroughly. The problems and the opportunities, the risks, and the potential solutions. Handed Jade a complete operational assessment that took me 4 months to complete, working nights and weekends while Linda handled family responsibilities. "Exceptional work, Brady," she'd said, scanning the executive summary. "Really exceptional. This level of detail is exactly what we need." She seemed genuinely impressed, asked detailed questions about my methodology, wanted to understand how I'd uncovered some of the hidden liabilities. For the first time in 12 years, I felt like someone was actually seeing the value of what I brought to these deals. "I'll take it from here," she said finally. "Need to package this for the client presentation. Get it into a format that works for board-level discussion." I'd felt proud, useful, like I was finally contributing at the level my experience deserved. Like maybe this was the beginning of the recognition I'd been working toward for more than a decade. Then came today's presentation, with her standing up there claiming my 4 months of work as her brilliant strategic insights. Every insight, every discovery, every recommendation presented as her original thinking. Just operation support. The meeting wrapped up with handshakes and congratulations. Investors praised Jade's thoroughness, her strategic insight, her impressive grasp of operational complexities. One of them, a woman from a major pension fund, mentioned a potential consulting opportunity. "We're looking at some manufacturing acquisitions in the automotive sector," she told Jade. "Your level of operational analysis could be exactly what we need. I'd be honored to discuss it," Jade replied with that practiced smile. "This is what I do, finding the operational truth behind the financial projections. Finding the operational truth." My exact phrase. I'd used those words explaining my methodology to her 6 weeks ago when she asked how I'd uncovered the pension obligation transfers. I walked back to my desk, not stormed off, not made a scene, just walked like I had work to do because I did have work to do. Always more analysis to run, more reports to prepare, more operational realities to uncover while other people took credit. But something had shifted inside me. That cold calculation I'd learned in the Army, the ability to assess a tactical situation and identify the best course of action. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 3 weeks earlier, I'd gotten a LinkedIn message from Shane Cooper, CEO of Heartland Manufacturing, the company Jade was currently charming in that boardroom. "Brady, someone suggested I reach out. Jade and I have some mutual connections from her Goldman days. Before we finalize anything, I'd appreciate getting your perspective on working with her. Off the record, I value practical operational insights." I'd responded professionally, mentioned that I supported merger analysis work, kept it neutral. Wasn't my place to comment on superiors, and honestly, I thought Jade and I were working as a team back then. Now, sitting at my desk while she probably scheduled celebration drinks down the hall, I opened a new message to Shane. 3 weeks ago, I would have said Jade was thorough, professional, someone who appreciated operational expertise. Now I knew better. Now I understood that appreciation was just her way of mining my knowledge to build her own reputation. I started typing. Shane, I hope this finds you well. I need to bring something critical to your attention regarding today's presentation. The operational projections you received contain significant inaccuracies that could fundamentally impact your acquisition decision. Specifically, the liability calculations for the subsidiary operations are incomplete. The Ohio facility isn't just shifting pension obligations. There are additional environmental cleanup costs at the Indiana plant that weren't disclosed. EPA compliance requirements total approximately $180 million. The Michigan facilities have upcoming union contract modifications that add $220 million to integration costs. The Ohio pension obligations, when properly calculated, represent another $300 million in hidden liabilities. Combined, you're looking at nearly $700 million in additional operational costs that weren't included in today's projections. I paused thinking about Linda and the kids, about the mortgage payment due next week and our oldest starting college applications, about my parents, both dealing with health issues that Medicare didn't fully cover, about the promotion I'd been hoping for that might finally give us some financial breathing room. This email would end all of that. Kill the deal, destroy Jade's reputation, probably cost me my job. But here's what you learn in the Army. Integrity isn't negotiable. When lives are on the line, you tell the truth, even when the truth is inconvenient. And while this wasn't Afghanistan, Shane's company employed 8,000 people. Those jobs were on the line if this deal went through based on false information. I'm attaching my original operational analysis, the complete assessment I conducted over the past 4 months. You'll notice significant differences between what I documented and what was presented today. I'd strongly recommend having your operational team verify these findings independently before proceeding. The numbers matter, and these numbers are wrong. I attached my files, the real ones. The detailed operational breakdowns I'd spent 4 months creating, showing not just the problems, but the actual scope of the operational challenges they'd be inheriting. The opportunities too, because despite the hidden liabilities, there were genuine synergies to be captured if the deal was structured properly. My cursor hovered over send. This would kill a $1.8 billion deal. Absolutely kill it. End Jade's career at Morrison Strategic. Probably end mine too. But I couldn't let Shane make a decision this big based on falsified information. Couldn't let 8,000 jobs hang in the balance while Jade built her reputation on lies. I clicked send, closed my laptop, went back to filing quarterly reports like nothing had happened. Because that's what operations support does, right? Handle administrative tasks, keep things running smoothly while the real experts do the important strategic work. 37 minutes later, Jade's phone started buzzing. She looked at it, frowned, declined the call. The buzzing stopped for maybe 10 seconds, then started again. Same number. This time she answered, walked toward the windows for privacy. I couldn't hear her words, but I could read her body language. Straight and confident at first, then gradually hunching over like she was trying to make herself smaller. The way people look when they realize they've been caught. The call lasted 6 minutes. When she hung up, she stared at her phone like it had just exploded. Then it rang again. Different number. She answered immediately. Yes, I can explain. There must be some misunderstanding. No, the analysis was reviewed by our entire operational team. What discrepancies? Her voice got quieter. Her free hand pressed against her forehead. I kept working on my reports, but I was listening to every word. I need to pull the original research files, she said finally. Give me 30 minutes to clarify the operational details. She hung up, stood there for a moment looking lost, then walked straight toward Lance's office. Her confident stride from this morning was gone, replaced by the uncertain gait of someone who knew their world was about to collapse. I kept working. Very important quarterly analysis work, the kind of operational detail work that apparently only qualified me for administrative support roles. 15 minutes later, both Lance and Jade emerged from his office. Lance looked puzzled and concerned. Jade looked like someone had just told her the building was on fire and she was trapped on the top floor. Brady, Lance called over. Can you pull all the research materials for the Heartland project? Everything. Original sources, your analysis, all documentation we have on file. Of course, I said, looking up with professional calm. When do you need it? Right now, Jade said, her voice carrying an edge of desperation I hadn't heard before. Game time. I opened my filing system, pulled the folders, took my time. Not slow enough to be obstinate, just thorough. The way good operations people are thorough. The way soldiers check their equipment before a mission. I handed Lance a stack of materials. My original analysis, the raw operational data, the source documentation, everything I'd given Jade 8 weeks ago. The real story, not the sanitized version she'd presented to investors. Lance flipped through the first few pages. His expression shifted as he absorbed the level of detail, the depth of analysis, the operational insights that could only come from years of hands-on manufacturing experience. This is incredibly detailed work. Really comprehensive operational assessment. Brady's very thorough, Jade said quickly, trying to maintain some control. He gathered the background information I requested for strategic analysis. Gathered? Lance looked up sharply. Brady, did you write this operational analysis? I met his gaze steadily. I conducted the research Jade requested. She asked me to examine their operational structure, identify any weaknesses or integration concerns. That's what I found. And the pension obligation discovery, the environmental liability calculations, these came from cross-referencing union contracts with EPA filings? Took about 2 weeks to spot the pattern, I said. Another 2 weeks to verify through secondary sources and plant manager contacts I've built over the years. Lance looked at Jade. Jade studied the floor like it contained fascinating secrets. Why is Heartland's legal team saying the operational projections don't match what was presented today? Lance asked, his voice carrying the weight of someone who just realized the scope of the problem. Jade's jaw tightened. There may have been some presentation adjustments to highlight the strategic opportunities for investors, standard practice in client presentations. Adjustments, Lance repeated slowly. The words sat heavy between them like an unexploded bomb. The core analysis was solid, Jade said defensively. I just emphasized the positive operational synergies to help investors see the strategic value. That's what we do. Package complex operational data into digestible strategic insights. Hiding $700 million in liabilities isn't packaging, Lance said. That's misrepresentation. That's the kind of misrepresentation that gets firms sued and executives criminally charged. The words hung in the air. Jade went pale, finally understanding that this wasn't about office politics or credit allocation. This was about professional ethics and legal liability. I didn't hide anything, she said weakly. I presented the most investor-friendly version of the operational data. The most investor-friendly version, Lance said with growing anger, of Brady's analysis. Silence filled the space between them. Lance turned to me. Did you share your original analysis with anyone outside the firm? This was it. The question I'd known was coming since I sent that email. I could lie, probably should lie to protect my job and my family's financial security, but lying wasn't why I'd done this. Shane Cooper contacted me 3 weeks ago, I said calmly. Asked for my perspective on working with Jade. After today's presentation, I felt obligated to share accurate operational information. He's making a $1.8 billion decision that affects 8,000 jobs. He deserved to know the real operational risks. The room went very quiet. You could hear the air conditioning cycling, phones buzzing at distant desks, the normal sounds of corporate life continuing while our small world exploded. Jade found her voice first. You went behind my back. You deliberately sabotaged this entire deal. I shared accurate operational analysis, I said. The analysis you asked me to do, then modified to conceal critical operational liabilities. You had no authority to contact the client directly, and you had no authority to present my work as your strategic insights. Lance stepped between us before the confrontation escalated. Enough. Jade, return to your office immediately. I need to manage this situation. Manage this? He just destroyed a $1.8 billion merger. A merger built on falsified operational projections, Lance said firmly, using analysis Brady conducted that you claimed as your own strategic work. Leave. Now. Jade left, but I could hear her on her phone before she reached her office. Voice rising, desperate damage control with someone, probably her headhunter. Lance sat down heavily, looked at me for a long moment like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in 12 years. How long has this been happening, Brady? The Heartland analysis? 4 months. No. Her taking credit for your operational work. I thought about that honestly, since she arrived, but it escalated with Heartland. Before that, smaller things. Insights I'd share that became her strategic observations. I thought maybe that was just how teams worked. Junior person does research, senior person presents. That's how teams work when the senior person acknowledges the team's contributions, Lance said. What Jade did is intellectual theft. She called me operations support, I said quietly, in front of all those investors, like the last 12 years of learning this business didn't matter, like I was just furniture. Lance nodded slowly. I should have seen this coming. When we brought Jade here, I heard rumors from her previous firm about taking credit. I thought it was office politics, petty complaints. I didn't realize she was systematically stealing operational insights from support staff. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then looked up with a grim expression. Heartland's board is convening an emergency session tonight. They want to speak directly with whoever conducted the original operational analysis. That would be me. Yes. And Brady? He paused. Don't go anywhere. We need to talk after I handle some damage control. 2 hours later, Lance returned. Heartland's pulling out completely. They're also filing a formal complaint with the Industry Ethics Board about falsified projections. I figured. You just ended a $1.8 billion merger, Lance said. I know. Good, he said, because it needed to end. I looked up, surprised. I spent the afternoon reviewing your complete analysis. Brady, this deal would have destroyed both companies. Heartland would have collapsed under the hidden liabilities, and we'd have faced massive legal exposure for providing fraudulent projections. You didn't just save Shane's company. You saved Morrison Strategic's reputation. Over the next 3 weeks, everything changed. Jade was terminated for cause. The partners restructured their operational analysis protocols, and they offered me something I'd never expected. Senior Operational Analyst, official title, salary nearly double my previous compensation, my name on every analysis I produced. Shane Cooper called personally. When you're ready for a bigger opportunity, call me. We need people who tell operational truth, even when it's inconvenient. 6 months later, a young analyst from another firm called me. Same story. Senior executive stealing credit, taking operational insights, claiming strategic brilliance built on someone else's expertise. Was it worth it? He asked. What you did? I looked around my new office, at my name on the door, at the operational analysis I was writing that would carry my signature, not someone else's. Yes, I said. It was worth it. Because here's what I learned. Being underestimated only works as a weapon if you're willing to use it. And when you finally decide you're tired of being invisible, nothing can stop you. Just operations support, Jade had called me. She'd been right about one thing. I was just operations support until I decided I was something more. And then everything changed.